Waiter who insulted Keanu Reeves didn't know he owned the restaurant. Don't miss out on this incredible twist. Before we dive in, subscribe now so you never miss incredible stories like this one. You won't believe what happens next. Let's go. The luxurious restaurant buzzed with the soft hum of conversations, clinking glasses, and the occasional burst of laughter from well-dressed patrons. Amid the sophistication, Keanu Reeves quietly entered, dressed in a simple black t-shirt and jeans, his hair tied back in a loose bun. His understated appearance stood in sharp contrast to the glitzy ambiance of the restaurant. He walked to the reception, his calm demeanor unshaken by the disapproving glances of the staff. The maitre d', an older gentleman, greeted him with a polite nod and pointed him to a table near the corner. Keanu's request was simple, a quiet table away from the crowd. But as he approached, a young waiter with a perfectly tailored uniform intercepted him. The waiter, whose name tag read Dylan, gave Keanu a once-over, his lips curling into a smirk. "Sir, are you sure you're in the right place?" Dylan's voice was slick with sarcasm, loud enough for a nearby couple to glance over. "We have a dress code here. This isn't a fast food joint." Keanu stopped, his expression calm and unreadable. "I just want a table," he said softly, his voice carrying an unassuming warmth. Dylan crossed his arms, his smirk deepening. "A table?" he echoed mockingly. "We don't seat just anyone here. This is a fine dining establishment. Maybe you'd be more comfortable somewhere simpler?" A quiet tension rippled through the air. Other diners began to notice, their curious eyes darting between the waiter and the man who seemed oddly unfazed by the insult. Keanu, without a hint of irritation, tilted his head slightly and replied, "I understand. Maybe you can recommend a place nearby?" The waiter's condescension turned to slight confusion. He wasn't expecting this level of calmness. But instead of backing down, Dylan decided to press further. "Sure, there's a burger joint a couple of blocks down. You might find the prices more accommodating." Keanu smiled faintly, his eyes holding a kindness that contrasted sharply with the waiter's arrogance. "Thanks for the suggestion," he said simply. Then, as if oblivious to the growing discomfort of the moment, he turned and walked toward the reception desk once more. As he spoke quietly to the maitre d', the staff exchanged puzzled glances. Dylan returned to his station, muttering something under his breath, clearly pleased with himself. But the subtle smile on Keanu's face hinted at something no one else in the room could quite grasp. Moments later, the maitre d' approached Dylan, his expression stern but composed. "Dylan," he said in a low voice, gesturing discreetly toward Keanu, who was now seated at the corner table he had originally requested. "That guest you just spoke to, do you know who he is?" Dylan raised an eyebrow, still wearing that smug look of superiority. "Someone who clearly doesn't belong here," he scoffed. "I don't know why you even gave him a table." The maitre d' sighed, shaking his head slightly. "You should be careful with your assumptions. That man is, well, he's not just a guest." Dylan's smirk faltered slightly, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Before the maitre d' could respond, the head chef emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a pristine white apron. Spotting Keanu, his face lit up with recognition. "Mr. Reeves!" the chef exclaimed, his booming voice drawing the attention of nearly every diner in the restaurant. "It's an honor to have you here again." Keanu looked up, offering the chef a warm smile and a polite nod. "Good to see you," he said, his tone friendly yet understated. The room buzzed with whispers as patrons began to piece together who this unassuming man might be. Dylan, meanwhile, stood frozen, his confidence cracking as the reality of the situation began to dawn on him. The chef leaned closer to Keanu, lowering his voice slightly but not enough to escape Dylan's ears. "We've prepared the special menu you suggested last time," he said. "Would you like us to serve it tonight?" Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, please. I trust your team," he replied. His words were simple, yet the weight they carried was undeniable. Dylan's stomach churned as he realized what was happening. This wasn't just a guest. This was someone important, someone connected to the very foundation of the restaurant. He quickly glanced at the maitre d', who gave him a knowing look, his silence serving as confirmation. The chef clapped his hands enthusiastically and turned to his staff. "Let's make tonight unforgettable," he announced, disappearing back into the kitchen. Dylan, now visibly uneasy, approached the maitre d' again. Is he someone important?" he whispered, his earlier arrogance replaced by apprehension. The maitre d' smiled faintly, leaning in to respond. "He's not just important," he said. "He owns this place." Dylan's face went pale as the weight of the maitre d's words sank in. He turned his gaze toward Keanu, now seated calmly, sipping water as if nothing unusual had happened. A pit formed in Dylan's stomach, his earlier smugness replaced by a swirling mix of panic and regret. I didn't know," Dylan stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" The maitre d' raised an eyebrow. "And if you had known, would it have changed the way you treated him?" The question cut deeper than Dylan expected. He opened his mouth to respond, but couldn't find the words. Meanwhile, the head chef returned, carrying an elegantly plated appetizer, followed by two other servers holding trays of exquisite dishes. They placed them on Keanu's table with precision and respect, their movements almost reverent. Keanu smiled warmly at each of them, offering a soft, "Thank you." Across the restaurant, diners were now whispering more audibly, pointing subtly toward Keanu as they began to recognize him. Some pulled out their phones, Googling his name, while others simply stared in awe. The once lively restaurant had taken on a strange hush, the atmosphere now thick with a mix of admiration and curiosity. Dylan felt his heart race. The realization that he had insulted the owner, and a global icon at that, was almost too much to bear. Gathering his courage, he approached the maitre d' again. "I need to apologize," he said, his voice shaking. "I didn't mean to—" "You didn't mean to judge him?" The maitre d' interjected sharply, his tone calm but firm. "You didn't mean to dismiss him as if he were beneath you?" "Apologizing isn't just about words, Dylan. It's about understanding the harm you've caused." Dylan swallowed hard, his throat dry. He turned toward Keanu, who was now quietly observing the interaction from across the room. Their eyes met briefly, and Dylan felt an inexplicable pang of guilt as he saw the kindness in Keanu's gaze. Kindness that hadn't faltered, even after everything. Taking a deep breath, Dylan approached Keanu's table. His legs felt like lead and every step seemed heavier than the last. When he finally reached the table, Keanu looked up at him, his expression unreadable, yet calm. I want to apologize," Dylan began, his voice trembling. "I didn't realize who you were. I didn't mean to be disrespectful." Keanu tilted his head slightly, studying the young waiter for a moment. Then, with a gentle smile, he replied, "It's not about who I am. It's about how you treat people, anyone who walks through those doors." Dylan felt his chest tighten. The simplicity of Keanu's words carried a depth that struck him to his core. He opened his mouth to respond, but Keanu raised a hand, stopping him gently. "We all make mistakes," Keanu said softly. "What matters is what we do after them." Before Dylan could process Keanu's words, the maitre d' approached, carrying a sleek black folder. He placed it on the table in front of Keanu and gave a respectful nod. Dylan's eyes darted to the folder, a sinking feeling in his stomach as he wondered what it contained. Keanu opened the sleek black folder with the same calm precision he had shown throughout the evening. Inside were a few neatly arranged documents and what appeared to be a handwritten note. He scanned the contents briefly, then looked up at the maitre d' and nodded. "Let's go ahead with it," Keanu said, his voice steady and composed. The maitre d' bowed slightly before retreating, leaving Dylan standing awkwardly by the table. His curiosity burned, but his fear of speaking out kept him frozen. The moment stretched unbearably until Keanu gestured to the seat across from him. "Have a seat," Keanu said, his tone inviting but firm. Dylan hesitated, unsure if this was some kind of test or an opportunity to redeem himself. He finally lowered himself into the chair, his nervous energy palpable. Keanu rested his elbows lightly on the table, his fingers interlaced as he leaned forward slightly. "You see, Dylan," Keanu began, his voice soft yet deliberate, "this restaurant isn't just about food or luxury, it's about creating a space where everyone feels welcome, no matter how they look, dress, or carry themselves." Dylan nodded quickly, his mouth dry. I understand now, sir. I really do. I was wrong." Keanu raised a hand to stop him. "Understanding is a start, but actions are what matter. When you dismissed me earlier, you didn't just disrespect me, you disrespected the values this place stands for." Dylan's face flushed with shame. "I didn't mean to, He stopped himself, realizing that excuses wouldn't help. "I'm sorry, truly." Keanu studied him for a moment, his expression softening. Apologies are important, but growth comes from change. He slid the black folder across the table toward Dylan. Open it. Dylan's hands shook as he lifted the cover. Inside was a list of the restaurant's core values, followed by a page detailing a staff mentorship program. At the bottom of the page, his name was written in bold letters, underlined. His eyes widened as he read the final section. Promoted to assistant manager, provisional basis. I don't understand, Dylan stammered, looking up at Keanu with disbelief. After everything I did, you're giving me a promotion? Keanu's lips curved into a faint smile. This isn't just a reward. It's a challenge. I want you to take this opportunity and prove that you can uphold the values of this place, that you can treat every guest, not just the ones who look the part, with respect and kindness. Dylan blinked, struggling to process the unexpected turn of events. I don't know what to say. Say you'll try, Keanu said simply. And then show me. The maitre d' returned with a tray carrying a glass of sparkling water for Dylan. He placed it gently on the table and gave Keanu a knowing nod before stepping back. Dylan looked down at the folder again, his heart pounding with a mix of gratitude and apprehension. I'll do my best, he said finally, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. Keanu leaned back in his chair, his calm demeanor unwavering. That's all I ask. As Dylan stood to leave, Keanu added, almost as an afterthought, Oh, and Dylan? And… The young man turned back, his expression tentative. Yes, sir? Next time someone walks in here, no matter who they are, remember, this place was designed for everyone. Dylan nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of Keanu's words. As he walked back toward the service area, he couldn't help but glance around the restaurant. The patrons were still whispering, stealing glances at Keanu. Some smiled warmly, clearly moved by the brief interaction they had witnessed. Dylan felt their eyes on him too, as if they were silently judging his every step. He stopped at the edge of the service station, gripping the counter to steady himself. The realization of how close he had come to ruining his career, and possibly his reputation, made his stomach churn. But alongside the shame, there was something else. A spark of determination. Keanu's unexpected kindness had given him a chance to rewrite his story, and he wasn't about to waste it. Meanwhile, Keanu sat at his table, seemingly unaware, or perhaps unbothered by the attention he was receiving. The head chef reappeared, this time with a tray of desserts. Your favorites, Mr. Reeves, he said, setting the plate down with a flourish. On the house, of course. Keanu chuckled softly. Thank you, but let's keep everything as it should be. Charge me like any other guest. The chef hesitated, then nodded with a smile. Of course, as you wish. As the chef walked away, Keanu's gaze drifted toward a young family seated at a nearby table. The parents were trying to keep their two small children entertained while sharing a single dessert. The kids' laughter, despite their modest situation, filled the room with warmth. Keanu watched them for a moment, then called over a server. See that table? He said quietly. Add a full meal and dessert to their bill, but don't tell them who it's from. Just let them know it's taken care of. The server nodded, a small smile spreading across her face. Right away, sir. Dylan, still lingering near the service station, overheard the exchange. His chest tightened again, but this time it wasn't guilt. It was awe. How could someone so powerful, so influential, be so humble? Every action Keanu took seemed to reflect not just his character, but the very essence of the values the restaurant stood for. As Dylan moved to take an order from another table, a thought struck him. Keanu hadn't just taught him a lesson. He had shown him how to embody kindness in every interaction. It wasn't about wealth, power, or status. It was about the quiet strength of treating people with dignity, even when they didn't deserve it. Back at his table, Keanu finished his meal, leaving a generous tip and a handwritten note for the staff. Kindness is the most valuable thing we can offer each other. Thank you for the great service. Keep making this place special. As he stood to leave, the entire restaurant seemed to pause. Keanu Reeves, the man who had walked in as just another guest, exited with the quiet grace of someone who had left behind more than just an impression. He had left a lesson, a ripple of humility and humanity that would resonate far beyond the walls of the restaurant. As the door closed behind Keanu, the restaurant gradually returned to its usual rhythm, though the atmosphere felt different. The diners, still buzzing from the encounter, seemed more attuned to their surroundings. Conversations softened, and the staff moved with an energy that felt renewed, as if Keanu's presence had left an invisible mark on everyone. Dylan stood by the counter, replaying the evening in his mind. He glanced at the table where the young family sat, now enjoying a full spread of food and desserts, their faces lit up with joy and gratitude. The parents exchanged puzzled but happy looks, clearly wondering who had given them such an unexpected gift. Dylan couldn't help but smile, a small but genuine gesture he hadn't worn all night. He turned back to the maitre d', who was busy directing the staff with quiet efficiency. Gathering his courage, Dylan approached him. "I owe you an apology too," he said, his voice steady but sincere. "I've let my pride get in the way of what this place stands for. I see that now." The maitre d' looked at him, his expression softening for the first time that evening. "Acknowledging it is the first step, Dylan. But the real work is proving you've changed." "I'll prove it," Dylan said firmly, surprising even himself with the conviction in his voice. The maitre d' nodded approvingly. "Good. Start by remembering tonight. Not just what happened, but why it happened." Dylan nodded and returned to his duties, feeling a strange mix of nervousness and resolve. He moved with more care, greeted each table with genuine warmth, and found himself noticing things he hadn't before. A smile here, a kind gesture there. It wasn't just about serving food anymore. It was about creating an experience, just like Keanu had said. Later that evening, as the restaurant emptied out, Dylan found himself cleaning the table where Keanu had sat. His eyes landed on the handwritten note Keanu had left behind. He picked it up and read it again, the simple words resonating deeply. "Kindness is the most valuable thing we can offer each other." Dylan folded the note carefully and slipped it into his pocket, a reminder of the lesson he never wanted to forget. Months passed, and Dylan's transformation became evident to everyone. He treated each guest with respect, no matter their appearance or status. He learned to listen, to notice the little details that made each person's visit special. The mentorship program Keanu had suggested became a cornerstone of the restaurant's culture, inspiring the entire team to strive for excellence, not just in service, but in humanity. One evening, as Dylan supervised the floor in his new role as assistant manager, he saw a familiar figure walk through the door. Keanu Reeves, dressed in his signature understated style, gave him a small nod and a smile. This time, Dylan didn't hesitate. He approached Keanu with confidence, a genuine smile on his face. "Welcome back, sir," he said warmly. "It's good to see you again." Keanu looked around the bustling restaurant, the energy vibrant and welcoming. "Looks like you've been busy," he said with a hint of pride. Dylan chuckled. "Thanks to you. Your kindness changed everything. For me, for this place." Keanu's smile deepened. "You did the work, Dylan. I just gave you a nudge." As Keanu took his seat, Dylan walked away, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. The lesson Keanu had left behind wasn't just about running a restaurant. It was about living a life that mattered. And for Dylan, that journey had only just begun. Well, that's a lesson in humility, isn't it? You never know who's watching, or in this case, who owns the place. Keanu's classy response proves why he's so widely admired, both on and off the screen. Let me know your thoughts on this wild story in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to catch more fascinating tales just like this. Until next time, stay curious and kind.